Hello, and welcome to Opening Bars. This song was originally released by the Vince Guaraldi Trio on Jazz Impressions of a Boy Named Charlie Brown in 1964. The names Linus and Lucy refer to characters in Charles M. Schulz's comic strip series Peanuts. Linus Van Pelt is best friends with Charlie Brown and is also the younger brother of Lucy Van Pelt. Schulz himself, according to his widow Jean, loved this song, as he thought it perfectly captured the movements of his characters. She says that if they went anywhere that had a piano player and they were recognized, the piano player would inevitably play this tune. This piano intro, and the whole composition, of course, is one of the most recognizable pieces by Vince Guaraldi, and is now widely regarded as the theme song for the whole Peanuts franchise. Let's take a look. The harmonic movement for the opening bars is straightforward, essentially one bar of an A-flat major sonority, and the same A-flat with an added F natural sixth in the left hand in the next measure. These two measures alternate with each other over 10 measures in total, and then it moves beautifully to the flat 3, C flat, for 2 measures, and then returns home to A flat for the final 2. Turning our attention to the right hand now, the B flat on beat 1 of measure 6 is a non-chord tone. You might call it an elongated appoggiatura, or accented neighboring tone perhaps. It's approached from the preceding A flat, and then resolves back to it. It's noteworthy too that when the right hand switches to the closely related and complementary A flat E flat to B flat E flat at measure 10, under the C flat left hand, that those tones suddenly take on an interesting color. The A flat becomes a kind of suspension rising to the B flat, which itself is the major seventh of that chord, for a slightly jazzy feel. And then, when the very same little 2-interval pattern is repeated in the next 2 measures, it feels like it is returned home under the A flat, E flat, A flat in the left hand, with the B flat now becoming a ninth. Those 4 measures are reused later in the piece as a kind of cadential feature. Let's look at the rhythm. The rhythms in this piece are so much fun, slightly funky, and with echoes of Latin samba and bossa nova blues. The opening left-hand riff is a pitched rhythmic ostinato, and that is a short repeating pattern, in this case 5/8 notes and a quarter note, sometimes slightly varied, or transposed to a different pitch. The irregularity of the pattern is then set up as a syncopation in 4/4 time by the addition of a preceding eighth tied over, which is really very clever. What I always pay careful attention to when playing anything that has a jazz influence is to look closely at where the chords are on the beat, for securing those is fundamental in making the syncopations meaningful. Okay, so now that you know the notes to play, you can concentrate on advancing specific piano techniques. My advice to you here would be to be very conscious of the fingering. I use my thumb and third finger on the opening interval. But now I have a choice before me. Either use my 2 and 4 or thumb and 4 on the next interval. The 2 and 4, while perhaps awkward at first for some hands, allows me to connect and slur the first 3 intervals together, and again on their return. While you will not have to significantly shift your hand position this way, you will have to roll your hand to strike the notes together to accommodate the different lengths of your fingers, notably your pinky. If, however, I use my thumb on the C and the E flat, I lose some control. I might miss the note altogether, or I might give it too much velocity, or I will be left with a small break that I might be anxious to cover with the damper pedal. Do not use the damper pedal here at all. I say this not only to preserve clarity, but also so that you can include these subtle articulations to let the music really speak. Notice that, in general, I always place the smallest of distinctions between repeating tones in a melodic line. Without this articulation, or worse yet, covered and congealed with the damper pedal, the melody would be deprived of any character. You may have noticed, if you launched yourself into this piece without really studying it first, is that it is deceptively difficult to play. The right hand and the left hand are quite independent, and the syncopations add an additional spicy complexity to the mix. The left hand is an ostinato, so it should be almost automatic, and the right hand is really not difficult at all either, but we get tripped up somewhere. Sometimes I find that concentrating on a single moment in a challenging passage can unravel the difficulty for a whole section. The trick is in finding that moment. For me, that moment is in measure 6 and its pickup. When I examined this more closely, I noticed that virtually all sheet music online has the 8th preceding this bar as an A flat tied over, but actually Vince plays an E flat 3 here. It's definitely weird. If you play the incorrect A flat, the right hand seems to want to syncopate with the left hand here. But if you play the E flat, things go much smoother. Practice that transition moment slowly, and it will unlock the whole fragment for you. I hope you enjoyed your lesson today. Remember, don't just play notes, make music. Until next time, thanks for listening.